When he was a boy, my guest loved to play in the dirt. He says that he was that kid with a truck that you see in every sandbox in every crowded playground. The story is also told that when he was 5, he planted corn in his family's backyard. So it's no surprise he ended up in agriculture. He says that he considers himself, first and foremost, a farmer. But he is much more than that. He is also the CEO of a foundation dedicated to finding solutions to world hunger. He has traveled to 130 countries looking for new ways to help people feed their families while at the same time taking care of the environment. He grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. Today he makes his home in Decatur, Illinois. And I am very pleased to welcome to Illinois Pioneers, Howard Buffett. Thank you very much.
You bet. Glad
for
to be
being here. I suppose some people will accuse me of having buried the lead here, because we should say that your dad is Warren Buffett, and he is someone who is quite well known as an investor and philanthropist, one of the world's wealthiest, most influential people, very successful fellow. So when you were growing up, though, he was just your dad. And what I'd like to have you talk about is when you were growing up, when you were a boy, what did you know about what it was that he did?
Well, actually, very little. There's a joke in our family that he would describe himself to us when we were young as a security analyst. So my sister, when she was in grade school, when she was asked what my dad did, she said, well, he's a security guard. And so none of us quite understood what he did. We knew that he sat upstairs and read lots of books and magazines and studied things like that. But we had growing up, we really had no understanding of what he did.
Yeah. Well, he is somebody who is famously a very down-to-earth man, and someone who, although he's very wealthy, has seemed to resisted the trappings of great wealth. So when you were growing up and your parents talked to you about success and what they thought it meant to be successful and what they wanted for their children, what sort of things did they say?
Well, I think first of all, we grew up with a mother and a father that made it clear you should do what you love doing, because if you're doing something you don't love doing, you're never going to do as well at it, and you may not do well at it at all. So we always had this encouragement to try things, try new things, make mistakes, fail. That was all okay. Just get back up and try it again. And so we had really an encouraging environment where we grew up to try different things and new things, and that there was not a lot of direction given. I mean, probably the most direction was given to focus on school, and like most parents would tell you, get good grades, do extracurricular activity, and be engaged. So we did that, but I don't think it was much different than a lot of the neighbor kids or kids we went to school with.
Yeah. Did they talk specifically about money and about the meaning of money and how to think about that?
Never really spoke about money in our house. We were fortunate enough we never had to worry about money, but I mean we were required to do certain tasks around the house every week, and we got a very small allowance for that. And we used to joke, because my dad had this slot machine. I thought it was a quarter slot machine. He claims it was like a nickel slot machine. But so he would pay us in nickels so that we'd go up and play the slot machine, and then he would win his money back. But we had very clear responsibilities, and we were expected to do them and do them right.
Yeah. I'm sure that people might think that being the son of a very wealthy person would be advantageous, and I imagine there have been times when that has opened doors, but I know that there have been times when being the son of a wealthy person, the result was doors were literally slammed in your face.
Well, people make a lot of assumptions about things that you don't have any control over. So, if you come from somebody that has been successful and is well known because of that success, and our society bases a lot of things on financial success, and that's just the way our society operates. So, people make certain assumptions about that. Growing up, we never knew what my dad did that much, or we didn't know what his success was or where it came from until we got until high school, and then we started to kind of figure that out. And so it didn't have a lot of influence on us. So you meet people who are maybe sometimes jealous of your situation, sometimes hold something against you, but I've never thought twice about that, because we've had so many advantages. My brother and sister and I have had so many advantages growing up that you just couldn't ever worry about the things that didn't go the way you thought they were go, because someone was thinking about your dad or his wealth. I mean, it's insignificant in terms of the advantages that we've had.
Yeah, I wanted to particularly have you tell a little bit of that story about what happened when you decided that you wanted to learn how to be a heavy equipment operator, and went down to a place where there was a guy who had trucks and stuff, and you said, well, would you give me a job so I can learn how to do this? And so
Fred was he was kind of a gruff old guy. I mean, this is a guy who built his own business up and very successful, and his sons still run it. And he looked at me. He says, son, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You wouldn't last 5 minutes with my union guys. Now just get the hell out of here. So that's what I did. But that was, I went on and found another way to try to do it. And probably because of who I was in terms of my dad's son, probably helped me get the next opportunity. So you just take it in stride.
Yeah. So, and I don't want to take a whole lot more time with this. If people will read your book, they will get the story. But you actually decided, well, okay, I'll just go out and get my own truck and do it on my own.
Well, I went out and bought a 955K front end loader, a Cat front end loader, borrowed the money to do it, had no idea. It was one of the scariest things I ever did. So I went to look at the machine on a Sunday afternoon, I remember this, and I met the guy who owned it, and he says, why don't you climb on? And I didn't know how to start it. And so I said, well, no, it's your machine. You go ahead and climb on it. So I watched how he did it. And I knew how to run it because I'd run some other machines, but I wasn't particularly sure how to start that one. So anyway, Earl Gruen's the guy I bought it from, and Earl was pretty good. He knew what I was trying to do, and he was helpful. A lot of people are helpful along the way.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about your being interested in farming. And I did, as I mentioned in the beginning, I did read in one of the things I read about you that when you were 5 years old, you were out planting corn in the backyard. Is that actually a true story?
Well, yeah, I have a picture of that. I mean, and my sister dug up a picture a few years ago, and the corn's quite a bit taller than I am. And of course, back then I wasn't measuring yield, but I grew a little bit of corn. I did okay.
Yeah. Well, where did that interest in growing things come from, do you think?
I think, I've always been interested in nature and the outdoors and things that grow, and I think I've always had that interest, and throughout my life I've had an opportunity to kind of be involved in different things that have probably continued to develop that interest. So once I got involved in agriculture, I really love farming. I mean, I love different aspects of it, and I think, my son would tell you one reason why he loves doing it is because of the technology. Well, back when I started, I didn't have a cab on the tractor, and it was a little 4-row planter, which anybody would laugh at today. But it's changed a lot, and I think through that change, it's been a challenge, but it's been an opportunity to learn. Anything I can do to learn, I love learning. Yeah.
And it does seem like if you look at your trajectory and how you particularly got to the point where you were into farming, it seemed like you tried a lot of things, you did different things, and it was maybe you had a hard time finding the right place where you needed to be.
But I think that's pretty much my personality. I mean, if you ask people to work with me at our foundation, I mean, I can't tell you what we'd be doing in 2 years. And if you look at what we were doing now, 5 years ago, I would have told you that you were crazy if you said we were doing what we're doing. So I think, part of that is just it's being a little bit dissatisfied with where you're sitting at any time and any place and any time in a moment, and that you want to see change and you want to try things that are new. And so I think that's just part of my personality.
Mm. Well, when that first farm, and I think this was actually a farm that your dad bought and then you rented. When you went out there and were working, how did you even know what to do and how to start and get into the mechanics of it?
Well, I had two great friends who helped me. Francis Kleinschmidt and Neil Shaner were both farmers, and I just went. I can remember going to Francis saying, I want to farm. Will you help me learn how to do that? And he kind of had a pretty heavy sigh. It's like, well, you don't just learn how to do that. He says that most kids learn it over a period of time being around it. But he was very patient with me. And he took the time to teach me how to do it, and so I had a lot, and I had access to all the different kind of publications that we have in this country that you don't have in other parts of the world from many different universities. So I read a lot of things. I had two great friends that helped me, and neighbors were all, the one thing about a farm community, everybody helps everybody, and that's really true. And so I can remember when I got started on the Nebraska farm and I had trouble with a pump or I had trouble with something I'd never experienced before, I would have neighbors stop and they'd come crawl under the field cultivator with me or something and help me figure it out. And they were all great.
So also in addition to the involvement in farming, you do indeed have a business background. You've served on a number of corporate boards. You did work for a couple of years for Archer Daniels Midland. And is the job at ADM, is that what it was that got you to living in Decatur?
Yes, I moved. I went on the board of ADM in 1991, and in 1992, they had an opening come up for an executive vice president that had to do with their public relations department and then also their investor relations. So they asked me about taking the job, and so having only been to Decatur a couple times for board meetings, my wife and I picked up a couple of our kids and moved to Decatur. It was a big change.
Yeah, and you do now have a farm in addition to, and we'll talk about the foundation and the research farms that you have, but you do also have here in Illinois your own.
Yeah, I have 1,500 acres. It's primarily around Tower Hill and Pana and a little bit up by Wanaco, but yeah.
You've authored a number of books having to do with conservation and wildlife. And the most recent, I believe it's the most recent, the title of the book is 40 Chances, Finding Hope in a Hungry World. And there's a good story behind the title, where that comes from. So let's talk about that.
Well, so I guess it would be like 10 years ago now. In February, you're kind of kicking tires, looking at new machinery and all that. So Sloan Implement, my friend Tom Sloan, who has Sloan Implement, he had about 40 of his customers come together and had a guy come down to talk about how you improve your planting process. And a lot of us think we already know how to do everything. So sometimes, I don't show up at that stuff, but I thought, well, I'm going to go listen to this. It's Saturday and not much going on. And so I went down there and the first thing this guy says is, he says, all you guys think you know how to do this and you have this all figured out, but you really don't. And that got everybody's attention. And he said, you think about farming as just one continual cycle. So what you really need to do is think about the fact that by the time you get on the tractor, your dad lets you on the tractor, and you get off, let your son or daughter on the tractor, you're probably going to plant 40 times in your lifetime. And that was like a little light went on it. I thought, boy, that's not very many times. And he's right. I mean, that's true. And so I thought after that, I walked out of there and I thought, I need to think a little bit harder about how I do my job in the field because I've only got these 40 chances to get it right and to do the best job I can do. And some years you do better than others. So I took a little more time. And every year I say to my son, you always get in a hurry. It's time to plant. You're getting stuff loaded up. And you want to get started, and you don't know if everything's going to work. And you go to get in the field, and I always say to him, I said, now just stop and think about how you're going to plant the field, what you're going to do. Take 5 minutes. It ain't going to make any difference. At the end of the day, you're going to feel better. And so just stop and think about it. Make sure you get everything squared up, that all your A, B lines on all the technology stuff is right. And so I did that, but it also obviously spilled over into my thinking in terms of just life in general. I mean, we have, I had to be a little bit careful when I was in New York with this book tour we did last year. My dad went on the first few days. It was great. And, he's like 83 or 84 now and going pretty strong. So every time I'd say, well, you get 40 chances, he'd kind of look at me like, I don't agree with that. I think he's already had about 70. But anyway, most of us, by the time you get out of school, get some experience. I mean, the heart of what you have in your lifetime is about 40 years to really either build a legacy, do whatever it is you want to do in your lifetime, raise your kids well. I mean, whatever it is.
Well, I think, the point that I take away from it is this idea that if you want to do something, you need to have goals. They need to be, if you can, make them achievable, and know that you're not going to have forever. Your time's sort of finite. So try to say, here's what I want to do in, 5 years or 10 years, or you don't say, well, someday, because you don't know what you're going to get. Well, and I think, our philosophy of the foundation is that,
is exactly what you say. I mean, you have a limited time. You have to set goals. They have to be realistic for us. I mean, we need to be able to accomplish what we set out to do. But I think too many people worry about failing. And so too many people are thinking, okay, whatever projects we do, we need to make sure we succeed. And we have a very different attitude about that. We actually will go into a number of things thinking that we are not going to succeed, but we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to be able to tell people this is why you don't want to do it this way, or this is why you don't try it. I think the reason we failed at such a scale in terms of fighting things like hunger is because we're scared to try things new. We're scared to fail at things, and we feel that if we keep doing things the way we do them, we're familiar with that and we're comfortable with that. And I just think that's been a huge setback for at least in the kind of areas where we work in conflict mitigation and hunger and agricultural development in tough countries. I mean, we have not done well.
You lead this foundation, the Howard G. Buffett Foundation.
It's an amazing name, right?
Established, it works out very well for you. It was established in 99, and as you say, that your main focus are these areas has to do with water, with food, and also with conflict. Those issues and how they all kind of go together. I think that though you really the thing that you started thinking about was conservation, and then kind of came to realize that for some people conservation is a luxury that they can't afford because they're just trying to survive.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very different mindset that we would grow up to in this country. And it was actually when I was at ADM in 1992 or 93 that a guy visited me, and I was spending all we had some money back then as well. We had a smaller foundation. It wasn't the larger one. And we were spending most of our money then on conservation initiatives. And he said to me, Dennis Avery said to me, he says, no one's going to starve to save a tree. And that really hit me. I thought about that, and it bothered me because I thought, okay, does that mean that everything I'm focused on and spending money on is the wrong thing to do? And I've kind of come full circle on it, but I don't think it's right or wrong. But I think that if you want to be a great conservationist and you want to be a great environmentalist, you have to recognize that there are literally tens and hundreds of millions of people in this world that do not eat the way they need to eat, that don't have access to food the way they should have access to food, that they don't have clean water, they don't have availability to water, which creates a lot of diseases and suffering. So this is not a perfect world. And so you can't simply just say, well, no one should cut a tree down. You may believe no one should cut a tree down, but if you have to cut that tree down to survive for the next week so that you can cook, or you have to clear it so that you have a small amount of area to grow crops, then you're not worried about next year or 10 years down the road. You're worried about right now. And when you're worried about right now and it's survival for you and your family, you're not going to starve to save a tree, and you're not going to starve to save a lot of other things.
We, I'm sure, could spend a lot of time, more time than we have, talking about U.S. farm policy. That is the policy that affects American farmers. But I do at least want to ask you to talk about that a little bit, since you are a farmer yourself. As you think about farm policy in this country, are there particular things that you would like to see change? Well,
we kind of work on farm policy in two ways. One is migrant labor immigration, and the other is farm policies that affect me as an Illinois farmer. I think we've got some very simple solutions for some very big problems that we have. Getting the government to move on it sometimes is difficult, but we work closely with the USDA people on conservation. There's some great young minds there, some really committed people. It's very exciting to see some of that government changing. But basically what we need to do is we need to promote no-till, strip-till, nutrient management, cover crop, rotations. We need to do the things that are good, healthy things for the soil that maintain water quality. And we don't do that enough, and we don't do it at a high enough level. And so, we're in this situation where you have the Chesapeake Bay, where now you have 5 states where there's these mandates on how farmers can control their nutrients. That day will come to Illinois. I mean, we've been able to hide in the sand, to be honest with you, in terms of the impact we've had down in the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, the hypoxia. I mean, you can look at infrared maps and you can just see where the nitrogen comes from out of the Mississippi and Missouri valleys. And so, I mean, this is something that is just going to, and the technology in that sense makes it easier for the EPA and other people to identify where that problem is and who's responsible for that problem. Our biggest fears as farmers, I can tell you, is that they overreact to that. But we also have a responsibility as farmers to take the action to improve that. And we can do that. We can do much better at that.
We talked a little bit earlier about the book that you wrote, 40 Chances, and the story behind the title, and again, that idea that somebody once said, well, really, as a farmer, how many crops in your working life are you going to have the chance to plant? And the guy said, well, maybe about 40, really. So that led you to think a lot about the importance of goals and having realistic goals and knowing that whatever you want to do, you won't have forever to do it. So with your foundation, you've actually set a time horizon, sort of applying that same idea that we only got so much time, and if we don't have a deadline, maybe that won't give us the urgency that we need to get the job.
Well, I think there's a couple of things behind that. One is that, the problems are big enough today, and I'm fortunate enough that I can spend a significant amount of my time on this foundation. So why would I say I'm going to build a big endowment up and let the next generation, the following generation, think about these problems? I mean, I don't have enough money to solve the problems anyway. So why would I just keep building up, $100, $200, $300 million in an endowment while I could be addressing those issues? So the number one point behind that is there is no reason not to spend the money now. The problems are big now; they're not getting smaller. So spend the money now. Use the best brain power you can get for the best ideas you can get. Second of all, I don't believe that. I have great kids. I have 5 kids, and I inherited 4 of them when I got married and had one, and they're great kids. But how do I know, number one, that they're interested in this? How do I know they'll do a good job at it? How do I know, I don't pay myself a salary. I don't think they want to go to work for the foundation and not pay themselves a salary. They might. I don't know that. But, there's different factors in it. And so what I do know now is that we can get great people working really hard to solve the problem. So putting it off for another generation makes no sense to me. And I just see there is an urgency there. And and I also think people behave differently. I think every NGO ought to put themselves out of business every 40 years. And if they did that, you would have a different attitude. People wouldn't be so worried about protecting their turf. They wouldn't be so worried about if they're going to have a job. It's scary, don't get me wrong. I mean, I make it sound like it's easy. It's not easy. But it would be challenging. But the idea that you have to refresh on your ideas and your people and what you're doing is an important thing. And so whatever I get done in 2045, that's what I'm focused on. And what I can't get done, somebody else is going to have to try to do.
Yeah. Your dad has said that when he's not able to run the company anymore, Berkshire Hathaway, his company, that he wants you to take over, not to do the day-to-day investing decisions, but to mind the overall culture and values of the company, and so that they will continue to be as he would like them to be. And one of the things that I read was that you have said, and I mentioned you grew up in Omaha, have said that you would never allow the headquarters of Berkshire Hathaway to move from Omaha. What's so special about Omaha?
Well, I think that when you have companies that have history in a community, and the community's treated them well, and they've developed a long-term relationship in that respect, I don't think it's healthy to pick up and move. And I think those communities become dependent upon you in a way that's understandable. And so I think that Berkshire is a company that my dad grew in Omaha. He built it in Omaha. There's no good reason in the world to move it from Omaha.
Mm. Something about the place, the values of the place grew up and got infused somehow in the
well,
company?
But I think my dad always said he didn't move to New York. I mean, most of the guys who are in his business are in New York, and he just said, I don't want to be influenced by all the noise and all the things that go on. I mean, I've learned in my lifetime, I've watched people keep themselves busy. I've watched people make themselves busy, and I think you can spend a lot of time doing a lot of nothing. And so what you want to do is try to spend your time focused on the things that make the most difference. And I think that was my dad's point of why he never went to New York.
Hmm. So tell me about what's special about Decatur?
Decatur, we moved there in '92. It was a little bit of culture shock for us, a little bit smaller community. But Decatur's been a great place that we finished raising a few of our kids there. 3 of our kids moved with us. I had a great opportunity at ADM. I had great friends there. It's a great business. Great business opportunity. And then I went down to GSI and had 3 partners, and that was another great business opportunity. And so, we've and I love the farm ground here. I mean, good, flat, deep black soil. I mean, you can't get any better than that. So we've stayed here and enjoyed our time here. We've made some really good friends, and there's not really a good reason for us to move from Decatur either.
And will your son continue to farm that Pana farm after you?
Well, he farms in Nebraska. He's in Nebraska now, and he farms the farm you were mentioning that my dad bought that I paid rent on. He pays rent on it, and so he's farming in Omaha.
Yeah. So the family will continue in farming.
Absolutely.
After you?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much. I think we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking
Great
with
to
us.
be here. Thank you.
And to you all watching, we'd like to say thank you too for being with us, and we hope that you will join us again next time for another edition of Illinois Pioneers.